Yankee sisters. This talk is inspired by an Ithaca in my life, as well as by this book, The Art of Pilgrimage, by Philip Cousineau. In the year 2005, at the age of 55, I embarked on a pilgrimage. That is, I set out to walk the Camino de Santiago de Compostela. For the few of you who may not have heard of the Camino, it is a pilgrimage route that originated in medieval times. The route itself may be older, as some maintain that it follows ley lines on the Earth's surface, and roads and trails were formed deliberately to follow these energy pathways. And just as there are many ley lines crisscrossing the surface of this planet, there are also many ways to Santiago. But the most popular one, and the one most referred to as the Camino, is the Camino Frances, a long walk that begins in the small French village of Saint-Jean-de-Port, scales the Pyrenees Mountains, descends into Spain, and then continues west for 500 miles through the northern part of Spain, going through countryside and major cities. A pilgrim's goal is to reach Santiago de Compostela, where the bones of St. James the Greater, apostle of Jesus Christ, are interred in a beautiful cathedral. How the bones of St. James, who was martyred in Jerusalem in AD 44, ended up in Spain, how a medieval pilgrimage evolved, its newfound popularity today, as well as the beautiful culture and lore of the Camino, is a wonderful tale, but for another time. I start there because my 20-year anniversary this last May was the catalyst for today's talk. So I will be using examples from that personal examples from that pilgrimage, but my overall goal today is to explore with you how travel can be seen and experienced as sacred, as a metaphor for our life's journey, and an opportunity for transformation and growth. It was Ambrose Bierce, an American writer, poet, and humor and journalist, who once said, "A pilgrim is simply a traveler who's taken seriously." A traveler usually is curious and seeks experiences to help them understand themselves and their world, in contrast to other people, countries, and cultures. In fact, there is a tradition of travel being a kind of university. Before the development of tourism, writes Paul Fussell, an American literary scholar and historian, travel was conceived to be like study. Its roots were considered to be the adornment of the mind and the formation of judgment. He goes on to write, however, the romantic aura and aristocratic associations surrounding travel changed irrevocably with the humbling horrors of World War I. Now there is no more true exploration, no serious travel, only jet travel to ruins. But Philip Cousineau notes, thus the paradox. The easier it becomes to travel widely on the wings of supersonic jets and via the internet, the harder it becomes to travel wisely. We are left with plenty of frequent flyer miles and passport stamps, but the gnawing suspicion grows that our travels lack something vital. The poet T.S. Eliot was driven to ask of this modern age, Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information? Take a moment now. Reflect on any recent or past travel you have undertaken. What was your reason for going? Were you in search of entertainment? Were you in search of healing or direction for your life? Did the choice of your destination have a particular significance to you? Perhaps the difference between a tourist and a pilgrim, one who takes travel seriously and as a sacred experience, is the intention of attention, more than just curiosity. A pilgrimage is a journey with a purpose. And if your journey has personal significance for you, then you have donned the cloak of a pilgrim, or in Spanish, peregrino or peregrina. So what are the elements or steps that go into making a journey, no matter how brief, sacred, and spiritual in nature? According to Roger Houghton in his book, Sacred Journeys in the Modern World, what makes a journey sacred today is its ability to stir our own authentic heart. That is the most reliable authority we can have in a world that calls us to assume responsibility for our own life choices. A visit to the place where you met your first love can be a sacred journey, or one to the grave of your mother or father. Whatever its destination, what sets a sacred journey apart from an everyday walk or an adventure or a tourist trip is the spirit in which it is undertaken. It is sacred if it sensitizes the individual to the deeper realities of his or her own being and of the world about them. Your goal may be more deliberately challenging: to do a trek, to visit a sacred site, to go on a retreat. Something, though, that provides an escape from the mesmerizing routine of daily life and allows time for inward focus. The millennial year 2000 was the beginning of 3 turbulent years in my life, during which all my assumptions about my life's future crashed. There was a drawn-out, painful divorce, depression, and a suicide attempt by one of my children, as well as the death of my mother only a few weeks before I planned to see her. But thankfully, by 2004, these events had finally resolved, and I was experiencing a moment of emotional calm for the first time in a long time. But I also had the distinctly uncomfortable feeling of being without any direction. Whatever was I supposed to do now with the rest of my life? And maybe, as a way to find an answer, I began to walk daily in the woods near my home. And then, one day, as I walked along the trail, a whisper in the mind: what about the Camino? I had forgotten that before my life imploded, the pilgrimage had been something I had dreamed of doing, never really thinking it was possible. But suddenly now there was an opportunity, and so began a year-long preparation which found me in May of 2005 on a shuttle bus to the Minneapolis airport alone and wiping tears from my eyes, terrified at what I had committed to doing. To be honest, at the time, walking the Camino was more of a calling than a thought out goal. But I've come to realize that it was the perfect pause I needed to discover a new direction and a purpose for my life. Often the impulse to travel, to leave the security of home and comfort of knowing what each day is likely to bring, is just that, an impulse, something calling you. You don't really know what the goal is, you just know you need to go. And if you follow that calling, I encourage you to trust that the ultimate goal or meaning of your journey will come to you if you look for it. And so, you can make a trip, an adventure, travel, a sacred experience. You don't necessarily need to think of it as a pilgrimage, and yet, like a pilgrim, you have a destination, a purpose in mind. In a larger philosophical sense, we are all pilgrims to the ending of our stories. A search for meaning, a purpose for our lives, is a fundamental existential task. We acknowledge this search in the Fourth Unitarian Universalist principle to affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. It may be that the conscious and daily awareness of this search is a necessary developmental stage in our evolutionary growth as humans. I believe travel as a sacred experience can aid us in this search. But can we ever know what our mission is? Asked Cousineau. There is no one answer for anyone, but it might prove helpful to dwell for a moment on a thought from the Upanishads, the ancient and sacred Hindu texts. You are what your deep driving desire is. Take moments in your life and go inside and listen. Listen to your heart's desire. It's there beneath all the things you think you want. Take a moment out of your busy days to give yourself space, to be quiet, to go within. And I believe that the best place to find and hear your spirit calling you is in nature, the woods, the beach, the riverside. But you may find it in meditation, at a church service, or simply sitting on a couch, staring into space. When it first appears, maybe only a brief glimmer, a memory, a child's fantasy, oh, wouldn't it be fun? Or, I've always wanted to. The way you recognize it is by the joy that accompanies it. It may seem impossible, but the idea that you actually might do it. A first step then in making travel sacred is this awareness of what do I want, and then to set an intention. Set the intention to be aware and awake to the purpose of your journey, to make it a sacred quest, to experience your time on this planet as a pilgrim's journey. There's a lot written about the power of intention these days, how you need to use all five senses to imagine having what you want to manifest, that you need to use visualization, affirmation, and positive thought, and all of that is really helpful. But the first lesson in the real power of intention is about listening to your spirit and your heart to speak to you. Ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? So the first step of a journey of 1,000 steps is as simple as that. Identify your desire. It can be a word, a dream, a vision, a place that catches your imagination, or a longing to see the country of your ancestors. Your childhood memories can be the source of forgotten wishes. Listen both to what you love and to what is difficult for you. Maybe even what you fear. Follow that thread. And speaking of following a thread, you might imagine your journey as a labyrinth. During the Middle Ages, the practice of walking the labyrinth at great Christian sites like Chartres in France became entangled with the pilgrimage tradition. Labyrinths created in the stone floors of cathedrals were often the final landmark on a pilgrim's path, and so became a symbol for the spiritual journey which they had undertaken, assisting at the end with the process of integration. Travel with a conscious purpose, sacred travel, can be considered as a journey of exploration and growth, just like your life is. The labyrinth is a metaphor for this journey. Walking a labyrinth can remind us that life is not a linear journey. Its single path leads ultimately to the center. But walking the labyrinth can lift us out of the everyday world for a while and foster contemplation, inner reflection. Labyrinths are not mazes. They are designed to help you find your way to the center, not befuddle you with dead ends or never-ending circles. It is a journey to the center of your being, to the divine spark within you, if you will. There at the center of the labyrinth, you may be mindful of new insights, connect with wisdom, or discover new knowledge. But a first and essential step in travel, sacred or otherwise, is preparation and planning. Realize that the practical preparations that you make are as much a part of your journey as the traveling itself. You have responded to the call, you have a goal, but now comes the practical aspects. When to leave, for how long, the cost, what to bring, the transportation, going alone, going with a partner, going with a group. With each practical decision you make, you reinforce your intention and deepen your commitment. In 2005, I didn't realize that truth until my spiritual teacher at the time said something to me that was like a gong reverberating in my being. I had shared my intention with her to walk the Camino and all my doubts about actually going, but also what I was doing to prepare for the possibility. And she looked at me and she said, "Christine, don't you know you're already on the Camino?" And this was before I even bought my hiking boots. And of course, she was right. Writer, cartologist, and fellow pilgrim John Brierley encourages pilgrims to couple the practical preparation with 3 ahas: awareness, a wakefulness, and appreciation, or mindfulness, mindfulness, mindfulness. Feel appreciation for what the journey will show you. Know that the growing will be a joyful adventure. The Chartres Labyrinth has many turns and twists, and while the destination is always visible, the way to the center is not always clear. Likewise, it can be difficult to see every twist and turn that your life or your journey will take. Elements of shadow and danger are real on any journey. Loss of money, passport of your travel companion may occur. Luggage may get lost. Planes may be delayed. You may be given wrong directions or even misled and cheated by con artists. Mohammed is reported to have said that A journey is a fragment of hell. And Henry James once quipped, things are always different from what they might be. Yet one of the ancient functions of pilgrimage, sacred travel, is to wake us up from the slumber, to help us be in the present moment, to go forward with courage into the unknown, trusting in the call. And we are more alert and more alive because we have left the security of the known and the routine. The absence of an unconscious reliance on the predictable and the presence of obstacles sharpens our senses, heightens our present moment awareness, and inspires creativity and trust. Difficulties with traveling companions become lessons in patience, compassion, and letting go. John Brierley, in his Pilgrim's Guide to the Camino Frances, suggests trying a psychic cleansing when on a journey. After experiencing any negativity in your own thoughts or any interaction that is negative, simply shake out the negativity from your mind and then invite loving thoughts to replace them. And this practice will keep your physical and your psychic environment clean. And an excellent way to remember these lessons and enhance the sacred conscious aspect of your travel is a daily entry into a journal. Just a few sentences. The name of someone you met, or maybe what someone says to you that has meaning. Whether on a pilgrimage to another place or simply traveling the path of your life, you can transform it into something sacred by writing about it. James Thurber, the humorist and writer, once said, when asked why he wrote, "I don't know what I think until I read what I have to say." In my Camino journal, I have words shared by my fellow pilgrim from Germany, a fellow pilgrim from Germany, who told me that her reasons for walking the Camino were "Der Weg zu mir selbst in mein Herz dort meine Liebe zu finden und zu leben." Well, my understanding of that translates to find the path to myself in my heart and to live love from there. Your journal may not include words. Collect items along the way that trigger memories, some pressed flowers, a matchbook, napkin, ticket stubs, ripped out pages of guidebooks, and maybe even sketches. Houston Smith, a scholar of religious studies, reported that he had a compulsion to take something back from every sacred place he visited. And on every trip he made, he would select a stone that he would take back and place in his garden in Berkeley, California. And he once said, "I don't even know where they are from after all these years, but I feel their power here around me." In the 19th century, but back to sketches, okay? So in the 19th century, Robert Hughes writes that drawing was an ordinary form of speech, used as a pastime or a memory aid without pretensions to high art. Well, graphic literacy has been gradually abolished by the mass camera market and the smartphone. And according to Lisa Dennis in her book, The Traveler's Eye, most tourists now, of course, draw with their cameras. But making a small sketch in your journal can capture a moment in a way that words cannot. In a journal I kept during a trip to Belize, I have a small sketch of a fishing boat I saw on my morning walk. The name of the boat caught my attention. Sea, S-E-A, Rias. Looking at that really grade school level drawing of that boat in that old journal, conjures up not only my vision of that morning, but also the sun, the air, the water, the felt experience of the moment, the consciousness I held, the place I was in my life. The drawing evokes the memory in ways that words simply cannot. Before I had left for the Camino, I had decided to follow the advice of John Brierley, whose Camino guide became not only my journal, but also my mentor and constant companion throughout the walk. He stated that the times he traveled without a camera were enhanced experiences, and that the camera creates not only a physical barrier, but also insulates the photographer from the reality of the subject. Well, while this perspective may be valid, I am deeply, deeply grateful to the friend who suggested that instead of leaving my camera at home, I just take one picture a day. She made possible the PowerPoint you will see later during the offertory. Although I didn't keep to this regimen during the entire pilgrimage, for a time I did narrow myself to keeping only one picture. The practice forced me to create a précis of each day and to carefully select what was most essential. I know someone who took a photo a day for 1 year using an app she had downloaded to her phone. It kept track and allowed her to play back month by month till the end of the year what she had captured each day. In his book, Chased by the Light, Jim Brandenburg set himself the task of taking only one photograph a day for 90 days in the forests of northern Minnesota. He described it as a journey to renew his creativity. I've also read of someone who wrote a poem a day for each week of his pilgrimage. Each method is a way of focusing attention on the present, anchoring and integrating your experience. And as the poem Ithaca reminds us, we have been given the gift of a splendid journey. So the practice of gratitude is wonderful, a wonderful way to add meaning and sacredness to your journey. If you can, bring a gift with you for those you might meet, or something you might leave in a special location you visit. It could be a crystal, a shell from the beach, or a river near your home, a small vial of water, a picture, a postcard. If you suspect you will meet children, stickers are easy to carry. Food items like granola bars or small snack-sized candies are often a delightful, welcome surprise for strangers with whom you cross paths. Making donations at a museum or a cathedral is another way. Any expression of gratitude and appreciation for all you are receiving from your journey is a powerful spiritual practice and makes your journey sacred. After you've reached the center of a labyrinth, you might realize why it was that you decided to walk the path. And then it will be time to make your way out of the labyrinth, taking into the world the gifts you received in the center. Which brings us to the last element of making travel sacred. In Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, the innkeeper at the Tabard Inn asks the departing pilgrims to tell 2 tales to strangers on the way to Canterbury and 2 tales on the way home. And traditionally, it is a pilgrim's obligation upon returning home to share the experiences from the pilgrimage. When I returned from the Camino, I was pummeled with requests to talk and present about the experience. This was unexpected and a bit difficult for me. But what I learned is that it is important for you to give yourself time to reflect and integrate the experiences you have had, to acquaint yourself with the transformed self and the new self-knowledge you have acquired before you share your stories. And on the other hand, it may be harder than you think to find an audience for your stories. As enthusiastic and interesting your tales of travels may be, people's eyes often glaze over as you begin to share in response to their question of, how was your trip? Cousineau recommends, tell what you learned from the journey. To get that thoughtful answer requires some reflection on your part, and also invites your audience to connect in a deeper way with your experience. Ask yourself if you feel like a different person, and if so, in what ways? I am reminded of Marcel Proust's famous quotation that travel gives you new eyes. Notice how when you return, the familiar has somehow become a little unfamiliar, or that your perspective has shifted and you see your life and surroundings differently. These oft-quoted words of T.S. Eliot also come to mind. The end of your exploration will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Thank you for your patient attention, and I hope these thoughts have given you something to ponder. Let me end by extending a traditional Irish blessing to you. May the stars light your way, and may you find the interior road forward.